Welcome to New Life Live, the premier place to receive free advice from Christian psychologists and counselors for the mental, emotional, relational, and spiritual challenges you face. Since 1988, we've offered compassionate responses that combine God's truth with proven psychological principles to guide you toward healing. Our phone lines are open. Call us now at 1-800-229-3000.
Happy 3rd of July. Nobody ever says that. It's always about the 4th. We see you, 3rd. You're not invisible to us. I don't know where that came from. Welcome to New Life Live. I'm your host, Brian Perez. Thanks so much for listening today and for watching as well. I'm joined in studio by Jim and Jill, who went up a hill to fetch a pail of phone calls, and we'll get to them in just a little bit.
Well, you're in rare form today.
Dr.
Ready
Jim,
for the holiday.
I guess so. That's it.
Can we check? No, it's just water, Jill.
Yeah,
He's just drinking water right
now. Dr. Jim Burns is the founder of Homeward, and clinical psychologist Dr. Jill Hubbard is here too. Jill, what's on your mind to start off today's program?
Well, I think it's rather fitting because I'm talking about meds, mental health, and mental illness.
Are you talking about Brian?
Oh, no,
Yes.
no, not about Brian.
Not at all.
But I was actually talking with a client yesterday, someone who can be tend to be maybe a little bit anxious, who's a little bit older and tends to have a fear that they're maybe losing it. Especially in watching friends who actually have lost it, are struggling. And when your friends all start to struggle, right, you can start to wonder about yourself. And so one of the things that I think we often overlook, and certainly when people call and we're worried and like, oh my gosh, am I getting dementia? What's going on with me? Do I have a mental illness? I think we have to look at the wide array of things that can happen because of medications, because of substances. And I think whenever we're experiencing something new, it's really important to ask ourselves, what has changed? Okay, certainly psychologically, that's often where I go. What new event or circumstance has happened? But also, I find that it's like, okay, have you added a medication? Have you abruptly stopped a medication? Has something changed? Or for some people, they can be on a medication for, something totally unrelated, a medical issue for months, even a year. And then for some people, it starts to turn on them. Mm-hmm. And I think, especially as people age, they can often have a greater sensitivity to medications. So I am for medications because, what would the world be without them? At the same time, I am always cautious. We have to be aware, and we have to be our own advocates. We can't just say, well, my doctor gave me this little pill, and I've been taking it for 20 years. Okay, well, our bodies go through changes, and so we need to look at that. So if something is happening, if we're having symptoms that we can't explain, and some of these symptoms, can be for a lot of things, a lot of fatigue or foggy brained, right? Or lack of balance, all these things. But sometimes we have to look at our medication regime. Also, so that's really common amongst the old, and you see that all the time. And so sometimes medications are contraindicated because the risk of them is greater than the benefit, right? Sometimes the benefit is greater, and so you put up with the side effects. But I think also amongst young people with substances and things, we're seeing more a rise of schizophrenia, psychotic symptoms, and we have to look at that, yes, even your good Christian kid might be using something that's causing these symptoms instead of it being the onset of mental illness.
Wow. Jim?
So good. I mean, even something, this is not a medication, but even sugar. You have to watch.
Yeah.
You say, my
or
kids.
Or salt, lack of salt.
Exactly.
Has caused a
or
lot
too
of
much
problems.
salt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really good advice today. Great thought for all of us.
For sure. Dr. Jill Hubbard here today on New Life Live along with Dr. Jim Burns, and we're going to go to the phones in just a moment. If you're on hold right now, stay right there. We'll be right with you. Susan, Marie, Cindy, Janet, going to talk to you and everyone else who calls in today to New Life Live. God bless you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting us as well with your prayers and financial gifts.
I went to Every Man's Battle in 2012. My sexual integrity was not what it should have been. I sought out affairs, whether physical or emotional. Until I came to Every Man's Battle, I didn't understand that would never fill that void.
Every day, men struggle with sexual integrity. Impure thoughts, strip clubs, affairs, pornography.
The shame and guilt was overwhelming.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity and purity through their one-of-a-kind Every Man's Battle Intensive.
You will discover what the true root of your pain is, and you will discover how to overcome.
You don't have to struggle any longer. Get help in Dallas, Texas, July 18th through the 20th. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE to register or to find out more. 1-800-639-5433 or online at newlife.com. Enter the code NLL for a discount.
Every Man's Battle saved my life.
1-800-NEWLIFE and the discount code NLL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
And let's begin our time on the phones with Marie in Houston, Texas, who's watching us on YouTube. Hi there, Marie. Thanks for calling in to New Life Live.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
You bet. Thanks for calling in today.
So my question has to do with my 17-year-old, who we just learned very recently has been making some very poor friend choices, which led to poor choices in some activities that he was willing to engage in. And so my question is, if you guys could, it would be wonderful if you could help me understand the difference between Christian counseling and a counselor maybe that's not necessarily promoting themselves as a Christian counselor for teens, because I also learned that a couple of the guys that he was hanging out with have threatened suicide to their parents. And so I don't know all of what my son has been engaging in and exposed to and where his mind is. And I don't know either if I'm kind of jumping the gun here and maybe overreacting, but it's kind of leaning toward wanting to get him into an office talking to somebody that he might be more comfortable speaking with. And so
well, at the very least, his friends are struggling, right? So that is an impact on him. And there is always that kind of group think and where people gravitate towards people who are struggling in some of the same ways. And so you see that amongst kids who like engage in cutting. Often they're in a group of friends who are all cutting. And so, I'm glad that you're concerned, because we want to try to head these things off at the pass. And being a 17-year-old boy these days is not easy. So in terms of your question, Marie, the difference between like pastoral counseling, where they mainly use the Bible and talk through Scripture with someone in terms of addressing the problems. Now, a lot of them have had more training and do more of a counseling type of situation. But I think you can find someone who is a Christian and also is a licensed professional therapist, so that has the training but also has the worldview as a Christian, but isn't out there saying, okay, this is Christian counseling. No, this is counseling or therapy, but the person is a Christian. So then there's greater trust. And in that distinction, it's not that God isn't a part of it. God is a part of all that we do. I mean, he is the one that makes the changes. But we can address things based on the client's comfort level. And you don't have to throw Christianese at someone to have it be biblically based, right? Those of us who are Christians and professionals, we have our training, but we're not going to promote a type of therapy that would be contradictive to the Bible and to the Lord. So I think sometimes you get it, and people don't realize this, you get the best of both when you have someone who's a solid Christian but has the professional training.
Yeah, Jim?
Well, I think that's well said. I choose counselors who are Christian. And there's different philosophies. She actually, when she was talking about pastoral counseling, sometimes that is great and that works. There's people who tend to lead in more of a biblical counseling, and I think you can get some help from your church, and they can give you good ideas. I would think of a couple things. My background is youth ministry, 17-year-olds. I think I used to say, I think all 17-year-olds should just go get counseling because they're going through this. They're not adults yet, but they're also not children, and there you go. So, but I kind of say that in with the tongue in my cheek, but sort of not, to be honest. I think you make the counseling positive. A lot of times, a 17-year-old, if you're going, you're going to need counseling. You're with the wrong friends. Things aren't going good. That's maybe the last thing they want to do. So I think the way you speak about counseling to them is also, this is a gift. Counselors are, really can help us. For me personally, I suggest that people, understand what the Bible says, that where there is no counsel, the people fall. In the multitude of counselors, there is safety. So, I'm very pro counselor, but that also means my kids didn't hear, you got to be crazy to go see a counselor. Right. So because my kids heard that, when it was time for them to get married, they went to premarital counseling with a Christian therapist. If they've had all three of my daughters are married, one of them had some moments in their life, and they actually went to a counselor that both Jill and I love, Dr. David Stoop. And they got so much out of it, but they never heard the stigma that goes along with it. So so I would make sure how you say that. Then the other thing I would say about the counts with getting them counseling is if they won't go, maybe you go first to someone and look for people, ask around, and look for someone who is really good with a 17-year-old. Because honestly, there are counselors who, as with anything, you go to church and there's certain people, they're not going to be good with 17-year-olds. So you find somebody who really
Hopefully
can relate
male.
to a 17-year-old, and I would go with a male. And sometimes it helps to talk to the counselor ahead of time because, your son may not even bring up the suicide stuff. So you've got an agenda for your son to talk to, but if your son is talking with them, they don't even have a clue where it's going to go, and maybe he goes off on something else, which could be good, could be not good. So sometimes it's best for you to have that conversation, or at least a short conversation on the phone. And a lot of counselors will allow that. It gives perspective to where you're looking for. But I wouldn't say to your son you need long-term counseling. I would say, hey, why don't we all get an assessment? I'm going to get an assessment. You get an assessment.
Yeah, a place to go to talk about things when we need to.
Right.
And you could say, son, I know you're concerned about some of your friends.
Right.
So I thought maybe having someone to talk to about that might be helpful.
Exactly. And Marie, with you, because again, he has some friend choices that you're not happy about. He has some activities that you're not happy about. Honestly, you could get some help. They'll give you perspective, and they'll let you get that perspective out first and let them talk. So lots of good people, and you don't have the problem in Houston because there's great Christian counselors. If you lived in a very rural area and there weren't Christian counselors, and I think sometimes even secular counselors who aren't against a biblical worldview, somebody's cutting, they know how to help them. You just go. We get advice from doctors all the time who aren't Christian or not Christian. So again, that's my thought. But I would get him in there.
Well, and also though, I think with young people, if there is any church involvement at all, if you can pull in, like you talked about being a youth pastor, pastors are the best.
Yeah, no, they're
talking to teens.
Right, and they are doing a form of counseling. They're not trained in it, so they're loving on the person.
But that's important.
Yeah.
They're
but
being
also,
a mentor and a friend.
When I was a youth pastor, I had a list of the best counselors in the area who I knew who I trusted. And so sometimes you can go to a youth pastor and say, who do you suggest if you don't know anybody? And they'll say, hey, look at this person does this person does that. And like I used to send a lot of the kids to a guy who used to be a youth pastor, and then he became a therapist. And he was great because he goes, I love the kids you send me because I get to kind of play youth pastor and counselor, and one of the best counselors I knew. Yeah.
Well, and also in a lot of churches, again, I don't know if he is involved or not, but they have, like life groups where it's just all boys, where you talk about life transitions and stuff. Yeah. So all that stuff I think is really important.
And we as parents have to understand that all of that is counseling.
Yes.
You can't just say, the old idea of, somebody comes into your office, Jill, and you lay them on, you put them on the couch, and they go, in my past life, That's not that. And you're not going to do that with a 17-year-old. So it's
Come
not.
at it from all angles.
It's not either or. It's all of the above. It's hard for a mom when we're desperate, though, and they say, I don't want to go to the counselor. I don't want to go. You got to be careful how that.
So then maybe you start with, well, maybe you join this life group. Maybe you meet with the youth pastor.
Exactly.
And then go in through the side door.
And if that doesn't work, maybe you say, hey, there's a great retreat that's going on. We'll pay for the retreat if you want to go, and bring a friend, because they want a friend. Bring a friend, and all of a sudden they go, wow, they make up the when they own the therapy, if you would, or when they own the personal spiritual growth, or when they own any of that, it's a lot easier than when parents are kind of shoving it down their throat.
Right, and when they're still living at home or they're still in high school, you do have leverage.
You do.
Would How We Love Our
use
Kids be a good resource for?
Sure.
Okay, very good. Marie, thanks for calling in today to New Life Live. We're going to send you a copy of How We Love Our Kids from the newlife.com store. Now let's go to Susan in Sacramento, listening on KWOL. Hi there, Susan. Welcome to New Life Live.
Thank you. Well, I'm so grateful I got through, because I've listened to your program for many years, and you always give excellent Christian counseling. I have a lot of respect for your program, and I'm grateful it's available to me. My question for you is, I guess I'll give you an overarching question, because it's a bit complicated and it has taken place over a number of years. But my overarching question is, how does a Christian single mom or widow confront injustice in the church that has affected her children? And I could give you a little background. I'll try to just hit the high points. In 2009, my husband, who was a devout Christian, both he and I, we went to premarital counseling, and we had a godly marriage, and we actually had our career before having children in the year 2000 and 2003. Well, in 2009, we'd been married for 15 years, but we felt like we had grown apart in our hearts, and we didn't know why. But looking back, I think it was we were so dedicated to being an excellent wife and mother and husband and father that we were not going on date nights, and we were not going out, because we thought, we moved to vacation land. We don't need to do that anymore. Well, when we were apart and getting counseling for a month in June in 2009, I got a call, and sadly, my husband took his life on the advice of our pastor. And I learned from my mother-in-law that she had the last conversation with him. It was actually our 15-year wedding anniversary. It was July 3, my mother's birthday, and that he had said he had asked the pastor, if a person's heart is so heavy that they take their life, does God understand? And the pastor said, yes, God understands. And so he said he had searched his heart, confessed his sins. He was at peace. All he wants to see was Jesus at the second coming. And my mother-in-law is an American immigrant from Germany. She only had a third-grade education. She lived through World War II. And she said she didn't think anything of it. It didn't even cross her mind that she might be thinking of suicide. And she said, are you planning to go to church tomorrow? And he said, yes. Oh, he said, I don't know. And she said she hung up the phone. And then she assumed he went to church, because he had gone to church ever since third grade when they became Christian. And then the next day, she didn't hear from him, because he always called every other Sunday to give her financial advice. And then she said she woke up on Monday morning with very early with a terrible premonition that something was terribly wrong with her son. And his older sister's 10 years older. She's a private duty nurse in New York. So she called her eldest daughter and said, I have a strong premonition something's terribly wrong. And so my sister-in-law called the police. I didn't know this, but I guess she called the police.
Susan, where was your husband?
He was at home, and I was
with you?
No, I was at a hotel, because there was a lot of tension. We were trying to get our marriage resolved.
So you were separated from him?
Yeah.
And you had no idea he was depressed?
No, I had not been talking to him for 2 weeks before this happened. Only my mother-in-law, and he was only talking to his mother and sister for the last 2 weeks before he took his life.
Right.
So I had no idea he was.
Okay, well, this is a
at all.
tragic story, and I'm surprised that the pastor, when someone asks about that, right?
So is that your question for us, Susan, that this pastor pretty much gave permission to your
Well,
husband?
he didn't pick up on that your husband was depressed.
No, exactly. No, I was, when I heard, because that pastor is my age. In fact, he's our favorite pastor and very close personal family friend. And in fact, when my mother-in-law told me that, I was filled with righteous indignation. And as soon as I got off the phone with my mother-in-law, I called that pastor, because the Bible says if somebody sins against you, you are to confront them. And I called him and I said, I need to meet with you at the church office face to face. He said, that won't be possible. I'm on vacation in Montana.
Well,
Go ahead, Jill.
At the same time, he was giving him biblical advice, and that's what was asked, right? He's obviously not one of those that was trained to recognize.
Right. Okay, we'll continue this conversation when we come back here on New Life Live. Thank you, Susan, for calling in today. So sorry that you've had to go through this, and now just wondering what to do now. And you've called us here at New Life Live. We'll be right back with you.
I was stuck. I was so stuck. 27 years married. My husband addicted to pornography for the majority of our marriage. I was very isolated and didn't really know which way to turn.
If you've been affected by betrayal, an emotional or physical affair, or pornography, Restore Intensive will equip you with support and tools to help you through.
When two people want to do their part, we can be restored. But if they don't, we can still be restored. We are not stuck because someone else made a decision. That God lets us weigh in on how we want to walk out our life. Our wellness does not hinge on another person's decision.
The Restore Intensive is coming to Washington, D.C. November 7th to the 9th. Register online at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and use the discount code NLL to save $50.
You guys helped me figure out what was going on.
1-800-NEW-LIFE and the discount code NLL.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found life recovery. And one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
And let's go back to Susan in Sacramento. Susan, what is your main question for us today here on New Life Live?
Okay, so to jump, that was 2009. Mm-hmm. My children, my daughter, our daughter was 9 and my son was 6. So they lost their father. Then, and my father passed away. He was a medical doctor in 2017. Well, my concern are my children. Mm-hmm. My children, after their father's suicide, they didn't ever cry because I didn't ever talk about it because I didn't ever want to say anything negative, so I didn't say anything. And I said, how are you doing? And then they just said, let it go. In fact, they love that Disney song, Let It Go. Just let it go and move on.
What do you guys say?
Well, I think it's impossible to let tragedy go. What it does, even if we try to let it go, it leaks out because we're in grief and we're dealing with things. And this may be the case with you, Susan, that it's been since a long time, 2009, but sometime the best way to let it go is let it out. Help somebody. Have somebody help you get through this, and that's the same with your kids. And again, they got to do it at their own timing. But we don't want to stuff. Especially with suicide, and that happens a lot. I would say a lot of the people that I've dealt with who have had a loved one commit suicide, they do stuff. And then it comes out in actions, or it comes out in deep depressions, or it comes out in other things, and it comes out in blame. And again, we don't know what actually. Do you still have a relationship with that pastor?
No, after that, I never went back to that church.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by evangelical Christians, and they said, don't ever go back. That's a bad church.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
a bad pastor.
Yeah.
And they surrounded me. I was grateful for that, but I am still stuck, and
Sure,
my children
sure.
are stuck. My
Well, right, because you guys just put it in a box and tucked it away, and you left the church, and so there was no processing. And I think a lot of people have this idea, well, I don't want to upset someone, so if I don't bring it up, they won't be upset. So then everyone is left to process and make sense of it all alone. So it's like you're in the house together and you're all alone with your pain and grief and not knowing what to do. So and Susan, we were talking, we don't know what actually happened between your husband and this pastor. A lot of times, and often when men decide to commit suicide, they are determined. So we don't know how your husband presented to this pastor. I mean, maybe you have more information, or and why the pastor didn't pick up on it. So your husband was obviously suffering. And if you guys have had this mentality in your house where we just don't talk about unpleasant things, then he was also suffering alone. And so I think it's important, because things like this that happen, your kids were young, well, now they're older, and it will impact their lives. And so it's important maybe even for you to say, you know what, I was wrong in us not talking about this. We should have been grieving together and talking about Dad and wondering about what happened with him and why he thought that was a good choice. And that obviously his pain was so great that leaving us all behind somehow seemed like the better choice. So that's a distortion that happens with depression.
Right. And when somebody, and I think this is for all of our listeners, take the lead. You don't expect your children to take the lead. Take the lead. Go process this for yourself. Go get some counsel. Get some wise counsel.
It's never too late.
No. And before freedom comes some pain. So you're gonna have to bring up some tough stuff. But get the help. And then your kids are watching you. And I have seen this over and over again, where somebody, I know somebody who entered an alcohol rehab, and a week later, their teenage son who had the same problem went into rehab with Dad, which was kind of cool. So in this case, I hope you get the help and process. Do the work. Make it happen. And then your kids are going to watch you, and I have a feeling that they'll then go, wow, this has been good for Mom, so now I'm going to follow.
Life Recovery Workbook for Grief. We will send that to you, Susan. Thank you for calling in today from Sacramento on New Life Live. And now here is Janet in Nashville, listening on Sirius XM channel 131. Welcome, Janet, to New Life Live.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing my call. I listen to you all frequently.
Thank you. How can we help you today?
Well, I'm calling about my brother and his terrible marriage of 25 years. It's really been bad the last 10. His wife is a non-believer. She's controlling, highly emotional, always planning a trip or always getaways or something, like she's not happy where she is. Lots of alcohol involved on both parts. She has no friends and has alienated even the family, her family. She's basically miserable. She was on mental health meds that had to come off of because of side effects, but haven't really found anything. And that's just been the last year. The marriage has been bad for like the past 10 years after she lost her highfalutin job that she felt very prestigious, I guess, at, because it just kind of, it was like that was her whole identity. And she's, and she's always right, smarter than everybody else. He is extremely laid back, allowed and probably enjoyed her making all the plans and decisions, but she's now demeaning to him, smothering him, discourages his activities with other friends.
Wow.
Even jealous of his relationship with me and our sister.
Wow. Okay, we'll continue this conversation with Janet when we come back from the break here on New Life Live. So Janet's calling in just to get help for her brother, who she feels is just smothered in this relationship with his wife. So we'll give you the best counsel we can when we come back here on New Life Live. Thanks for calling in today. Thanks for watching. And all of our listeners on Sirius XM channel 131, hello, you can call in when we're here.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit it's addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have Christ-centered partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. Club New Life changes lives.
I think I go way back to listening to New Life, learning so much from it, and then becoming a Club New Life member.
Club New Life is a monthly giving family that helps New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people.
You know, I'm so thankful because you know why I keep giving? Because I keep learning, and I'm so thankful for all the lives that you touch every day and the people's lives. So when I get to still hear the radio show, it's just so encouraging to my heart.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
And you know one reason I give? Because I feel like sometimes I'm hiding behind a counselor's couch listening to all this great information and not paying, so my guilt of this great advice is alleviated by being a Club New Life member.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. And together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Janet in Nashville, thanks for calling in today. What is your main question for Doctors Jill Hubbard and Jim Burns?
Okay, my main question is that I'm a believer. My brother professes to be a believer. She is not, but you know, I don't think divorce is always the best answer, even when there's conflict. But I have seen him just go downhill in every way, health-wise and everything, drinking, since this terrible conflict has been just getting worse and worse and worse. And he's now in a hotel for the second, third time maybe in the past year, because he just can't deal with it anymore, and she's
so your question
as well,
Janet?
Well, he talks to me. He talks to me about it, and I don't want to say, well, you just need to leave her. I don't want to guide him in any definite way, but how can I support him? And is there a counselor in his area maybe you could refer him to?
Yes.
I think one of the things you can do is the greatest thing you can do is be his sister and offer the resource of counseling. Because again, unless you're a trained counselor, you're not going to help him process this. So you don't want to put the burden on you to say divorce, no divorce, whatever, because again, you're his sister. And it's beautiful. You have it sounds like you have a wonderful relationship with him. So find that resource, and offer him, say, look, I've done some work with it. Here are 3 amazing names, or here are 2 amazing names in your area. Here's where I got it. I want to suggest that you do not pass go and go right to him and get some wisdom and help on this. Because again, we need to do this with help. And especially because he's been in the marriage for so long, and it is terrible right now. I think that's the word you used, horrible. But again, he still has to get some understanding. He has to figure it out, and he's not going to be able to do this on his own. And you know what? You can help him to an extent. He's leaning on you, but as he leans on you, then you get the chance to give him the help, the resources that he can, and then you be his support system, and love on him and care for him, but let him get into a counseling relationship.
Well, and you're too close, Janet, to be the one to tell him what to do, right? Because that can come back on you in the family dynamics, right? And so, part of the problem is in marriages, things and dynamics get co-created. You said your brother is very laid back. Well, that's a perfect match for someone who is super controlling.
Sure.
So that's kind of worked until now it's not working for him anymore. And yet, if he's a very passive person, it's going to be hard for him to step up and to have the boundaries that he needs for himself to move forward, and it will create conflict because he's breaking the rhythm. So that's where it's really important that he get in with a therapist that can walk with him through this and help him to shore up himself and to see if there can be some changes in the marriage and to have the courage to have it get worse before it gets better. So I'm thinking of a couple of different books. I mean, Boundaries is always good. Take Your Life Back, or even the one that we don't carry, Walking on Eggshells.
Okay. We'll send you Boundaries for sure, Janet, and the other ones are available. Well, one of them is available on the newlife.com store.
One other quick thing to Janet, and yet for all of our listeners too. You mentioned alcohol. You mentioned alcohol with her alcohol. Sometimes, if they're trying to get their marriage right, this is where a sister can help. He's not going to be able to do that if he's medicating his life with alcohol. So if you think he has an alcohol problem, he honestly may need to go to that counselor to work through his own issue, so that he can have clarity to be able to make some decisions on the marriage.
Janet, stay on the line and we'll send you a copy of that book. We'll also put you in touch with a counselor, maybe give you some resources for your brother so that he can find help. Now, the thing about finding a counselor or a Christian counselor, people can just go online and find one, but you've got enough going on. We want to help you with that. We'll put you in touch with somebody that we know, somebody that's within the New Life Network. So if you need help in that regard, you can give us a call here at New Life and we'll help you with that. Here is Cindy calling in from Costa Mesa, listening on KKLA. Welcome, Cindy, to New Life Live.
Thank you. So my brother, sister, and I were all in our early 60s. My mom's going strong at 92, sharp mind. And we're in a group text we grew up going to Mariners Church. And about a year ago, my brother started going to the Catholic Church, and he's become very Catholic, sends us texts all the time, tells us how we need to be reading the Catholic Bible. My sister and I have not responded well to the texts, which probably have made matters worse. For instance, a year ago, he was spouting off about how we shouldn't be going to, non-denominational churches. And Heidi, my sister, puts, oh, wait, are you a full-on Catholic now? And he put, yes, ! And she, responded with the vomit emoji. Well, things have just gotten worse. And recently he sent a head-to-toe picture of the new Pope. And I didn't help by just putting nice dress, whites. So he tells us that we're very disrespectful and we need to be more reverent. And he just keeps hammering us. And we don't know how to deal with it. My mom just says ignore it, but he'll call me. He'll send me books. We just don't understand where this is coming from.
Well, that's a good question, Cindy. I don't know. Is your brother, kind of sometimes in the second half of life, people, explore new things. Is your brother married? And could there be influences from his spouse?
That's what different people have asked. The answer is absolutely. They were married in a Catholic church, but then they agreed to go to Saddleback Church, and that's where they've gone up until about, I guess it's been a couple of years now. They're fully into this Catholic Church.
Okay.
And he goes to confession and such. And I understand a lot of Catholics, of course, are Christians. but he's just full on.
Yeah, it is a Christian religion, and there has been kind of a swinging back to things that are more reverent. And so I think instead of being maybe combative with him or just ignoring him, say, maybe even name, it sounds like this is really meaningful for you, and that you're really, in touch with, kind of the awe and reverence of God, and that the Catholic Church is providing you some vehicles for that. We're really happy for you. And, and that each of us is on our own Christian journey. But as long as the absolutes are in place, right? Belief about Jesus and, right, he died for our sins. So keeping kind of the main things. And it's like how you choose to express your faith, that's each person's individual journey and what fits for them. And so, if God is meeting you, brother, at the Catholic Church, I couldn't be happier for you. And thank you for sharing what's been meaningful for you. And then leave it at that.
Is it okay for her to say, just don't send me any more pictures of him or books or anything? Let's just, you're doing your thing and we're doing ours.
Well, I think it is. But at the same time, I like what Jill said, Cindy. I think you, I laughed out loud when I thought about the vomit emoji. It cracked me up. But, I think the vomit emojis and, talking about what the Pope is wearing probably doesn't help the relationship. When somebody gets and this could be moving from Catholicism to Protestant Christianity to a mega church like where you were talking about, which I know that church very well. Or vice versa. They were this church, now that they get excited. And so I think as long as it's something that's not toxic, maybe it's time just to say, as Jill said, thank you for sending this. Good for you. Now, again, we can say, hey, I didn't get a chance to read that or whatever it might be. But honestly, don't make a big deal out of it. I just say thank you. And you know what? Maybe to get to know him better. I have a friend who they're coming from a different faith experience than me. And they'll send me a book. And you know what? Sometimes I skim that book at least and just say thank you. And you know what? The other day I was reading one. When I say the other day, it was about 2 months ago. And I was reading something that they had sent me, and I went, wow, that's a great quote. I underlined the quote. I actually put it in a book I was writing. So, take this as not the whole negative. And if he keeps pounding you, then you got to go, okay, you're pounding me.
Mm-hmm.
When I first became a Christian, I pounded my parents. I don't think that was the right way to do it because I pounded them so much that they were going the opposite way.
Yeah, and so it's like, brother, I would hear you better if you didn't come on so strong.
Yeah.
And that, generally, we could all be more reverent. You're right, brother.
Yeah.
So thank you for your heart, but when it comes at me too strongly, then it makes me naturally want to push away.
Yeah.
What book from the newlife.com store should we send? I don't think we have. Don't send vomit emojis to your brother. That's out of print. But we'll find one from the newlife.com store and send it out to you there, Cindy. Christy, we'll talk to you when we come back from the break here on New Life Live. Thank you all for listening today. Don't forget to follow us on social media, too. You can find all the links on our website, newlife.com.
Do you need help for life's hard situations?
My husband recently said he wanted a divorce.
I'm confused on what I should do.
I have an eating disorder.
New Life Live answers your questions on relationships, grief, addiction, trauma, anxiety, and much more, all from a biblical perspective with our panel of professional counselors and psychologists.
I learned a lot from your program. You help so many people.
I appreciate your ministry.
Whether you listen or watch, there are so many ways to connect with us to ask our panel of counselors a question. Call us Monday through Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific at 1-800-229-3000 to ask your question on New Life Live. Or go to newlife.com/radio for other ways to get your question answered.
I'm trying to find help.
I just want to know how to set boundaries.
If it's a sin, what am I supposed to do?
Need a therapist or a coach, a resource, or an intensive? Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. For over 35 years, New Life has been the most trusted name in Christian counseling.
Your ministry has saved my life.
If you struggle with emotional hurt, family or marriage problems, the pit of depression, or the pain of addiction, we can help.
I'm down 100 pounds now from what I was.
I found a counselor through New Life Ministries, and it's just been outstanding.
Our treatment programs provide clinically appropriate solutions from licensed professionals, all in a biblical framework.
I have had problems with alcohol. I think God has ordained this place to be His.
You don't have to be a prisoner of your pain. Help is available at 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
She tells me that I'm a new man, and I feel like a new man.
It worked for me, and it can work for them too.
This time it is different.
If you're ready to take the first steps toward genuine spiritual and emotional healing, call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. God can open the door for a better tomorrow.
To get someone that's competent, that's good at what they do, it's been like day and night compared to what I've had before.
Call 1-800-639-5433. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Your giving makes a difference here at New Life Ministries, a difference you can hear. Every day, people who find themselves in life's hardest places call in to get the help and hope they need. You hear their stories, you hear their anger and frustration over a betrayal, a job loss, a prodigal child. And then you hear the good advice and counsel from our team of clinicians and therapists. You hear tears of despair turn into tears of joy when they realize they're not alone, that they don't have to stay stuck in their situation. And there are still so many more people that we can help. God puts these people in our path, and we come alongside them through your financial support. Please give us a call at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit newlife.com to give New Life to someone who feels burdened to their breaking point. You can also text NLM to 28950. Thank you for whatever you can do. Christy in Boise, Idaho, listening on KBXL. Welcome to New Life Live.
Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, how can we help you today?
So my daughter is getting married in August, and I've had numerous difficulties with my daughter since she was a teenager, and my husband and I ended up sending her away to a therapeutic boarding school for 19 months. So you can imagine how expensive that was. Prior to sending her, we had spent thousands of dollars of getting her help, and then once she got out of the program, she pretty much left our home at 18 and has been on her own. Married, divorced, had a son, didn't want her son. We said we'd take him on the weekends until she could get her life in order. And long story short, eventually got her back with her son, and now she's engaged, and we approve of this marriage. And we gave our blessing. And then my husband passed me about 2.5 years ago, and then and so more issues started to come out where we felt that, or I felt, I should say now, that we need to talk about what happened in the past. She has shut that door. She says, I will never talk to you or to anybody else about it. Counseling has always been a top priority for our family, and like I said, we've spent thousands in counseling, not only for her, but for my husband and myself and my other daughter, who was severely affected by her sister. And so I have been invited to the wedding. She does have a borderline personality disorder, and basically she has not allowed me to speak to her since last November of 2024. The door has been opened, closed, open, closed, open, closed. And now it's, oh, you can come to my wedding. And I said, I can't sweep this under the carpet. I have to address some of the issues. And she, once again, has put her walls up and says, you need counseling. And,
so you want to address those issues before the wedding?
Well, I know I can't address all of them. But it's like I was very direct, and I said, look, I have no problems with coming to your wedding. Thank you for inviting me. However, I feel that if I say one more incorrect thing, you're going to shut me out again. And I said, that does affect me. And so she basically put her boundary up again and said, I'm not going to discuss anything with you, and instead we'll have to be in front of a counselor. And I said, that's fine, as long as it's a Christian counselor. And I've had some people say to go. Some people don't say anything. But honestly, there's a part of me with not talking to her for the last several months, my life's been more peaceful. And if I missed her wedding, there's a part of me, some would say you would have regret. But I've been dealing with somebody with this severe issues for the last 14 years.
Yeah.
And it's not like I haven't tried. It's not like my husband hasn't tried. We've given it our all, but now my husband's gone. And the only reason why we had her go to the therapeutic boarding school, which was incredible, was because there was a severe allegations against my husband from my daughter, which medical staff, as well as, meaning hospital staff, as well as CPS, we were cleared of everything. And so, and of course, that's a long time ago. That's why we sent her away.
Christy, for sake of time, I'm going to jump in. Wow, you have been through a lot. And I have dealt with families, parents who have had children like this. And you're right, the cost is staggering. The parents always get dumped on. And you live through hell, basically, with the different gyrations that somebody who has more, severe emotional issues creates. And there is a lot of chaos. And it does make sense that you're weary and worn out. You don't have the same support, and that, you get to a point where it's like, I'm done. You're an adult now. I think you have to kind of balance this, because this is your daughter, regardless. And, we sign, our children come into the world, and it's even more so than marriage these days. It is kind of for better or worse. But that doesn't mean you can't have boundaries. And with someone with BPD, you definitely need to have your boundaries for you. As well as not getting sucked into the old dynamic. So hopefully you've done your work. And sometimes you almost have to be boring with them. So, so that they don't put things on you, that you put it back on them. But I guess I'm wondering, is there a way that you could go to the wedding, because you're a mom and this is your child, but also, have kind of that healthy detachment for yourself? I don't know that prior to a wedding I would, be bringing up all of the past. This is not the time. And she may just be inviting you because she's happy right now. This is a special time in her life, and could easily see you as trying to spoil that. And so go to the wedding, and then again keep your healthy detachment. And then after there's been some time, say, I'd really like us, in order to move forward, to be able to meet with a counselor and maybe talk about some of the past, so we can move forward in a healthier way.
Jim?
I love the phrase healthy detachment, because you know what? You're not going to have the same relationship with her that maybe other moms have during, at a wedding. So go if you can.
Well, this is a second wedding, too.
And you're going to have to decide. But if you go, then go, cheer her on. Don't make a big deal. Have a welcoming mat type of mentality. Hug everybody and be this. And you're safe, because she's not going to see you safe if you want to engage right then. She offered the chance to sit in front of a counselor. So I wouldn't say it at the wedding. I wouldn't say it before the wedding, but sometime afterwards say, honey, I've been thinking a lot about that. You thought I needed some counseling, and I think I do. And I'd love for you to come with me and help us, get better. And you realize, that she's been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, easy for me to say. And you know that, so you also need the tools to be able to work with someone like that. That's a tough one, by the way, as a mom. And but I if you go, you don't have a whole lot to lose as long as you don't step in it.
Yeah,
that's hard.
Should we send her a copy of your book? Yeah. Doing Life with Your Adult Children. We offer this resource often. It's available on the newlife.com store. I'm looking over these chapter titles. This is going to help you immensely, Christy. Thank you so much for calling in today. We're out of time. We'll be back tomorrow here on New Life Live. God bless.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 or online at newlife.com. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.